My name is Fred Cook, and I drive school bus.
My name is Leanne Murchie, and I'm a school bus driver for TCAPS. It's been a very wonderful experience.
When I first hired in, one of the previous bus drivers told me that this particular job, driving school bus, is the best job on earth. So I immediately took to it, and I have to agree that this is one of the best jobs that anyone can do.
What prompted me in the very beginning, I have a college degree, and she said, "You're in the safest vehicle in the world on the road." So I thought, well, I'm gonna try. Because I would be on the same time schedule as my own children. And when they were off, I was off. When holidays, I was there. So it was the best of both worlds. TCAPS offers jobs elsewhere within the system.
Between routes, I used to, for 12, 13 years, I did lunch duty over at East Middle School, and now I paint.
They're real good about finding people the hours that they need during the course of the day to make the job great. We have Mesa Insurance. The whole district has it. It's awesome. It's the best health insurance. We offer a 401k. There's a sign-on bonus. It's a win-win situation.
The most important thing, I think, coming to work at TCAPS is you understand that you are a part of a team. It's a part of a collective. It's not just bus drivers and then versus teachers. It's not that. We all are in this thing called education together.
If a person likes kids, generally likes kids, this is a perfect job.
So I'm talking to kids all day, and that experience is really heartwarming, and I continue to understand what it means to be a part of the community.
You are an educator. You have a chance to touch children's lives every day. And don't think that you don't. You are such an important part of the wheel of education.
You do? Okay.
There's, I think the end, when it talks about the next meeting, we're gonna discuss about changing the time. So right
Okay.
now in the minutes, I don't know if we leave it as it stands, or if
The
we
minutes
change
would have
it.
been
That would have
from
been
last
from
meeting.
January
So we'll leave
2nd.
it there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're good for
so
now.
no
Yep.
changes on the,
Yep.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so we're good?
yes.
All right, hearing no changes, minutes will remain as posted. Appointment of committee chairperson. Nominations are in order for the 2024 chairperson for the Board Curriculum Committee. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Erica Moon Moore.
Okay,
And I'll second.
okay. So we have a selection of Erica Moon Moore. It has been determined that trustee Erica Moon Moore will serve as chairperson of the board curriculum committee for 2024. Thank you for the opportunity of serving as acting chairperson, and the newly appointed chairperson will now preside.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. So we'll keep moving along on our agenda. So next is the committee meeting schedule for 2024. So I'll open up the discussion regarding the draft schedule that was provided in our agenda. And are there any changes to that draft schedule that anyone would like to make?
Looks good to me. I like moving to Tuesdays.
Okay, and just a note to the anyone that's listening, we are moving the curriculum committee to Tuesday instead of Mondays, starting February 27th, and we'll keep it at the same time, 8:30 here in this room. So I think that was the main change moving forward. So we will keep that, and that should probably be moved to the consent calendar then, right? Do we have to approve the full board or no?
It is actually not. It will go on, just the entire calendar will be on there.
Okay.
So we have it that way, so at that point, you'll be good.
Okay. Perfect. So moving on to the 2023-24 TCAPS district course catalog. Miss Heidi Maltese-Kodak.
Yeah, we just have one addition for this year, and this happens usually at semester when NMC courses are being selected. So you'll see that English, Science Fiction, and Fantasy was an addition that was added as a dual enrollment course for students in TCAPS, and so that will be reflected in the catalog.
I have a question about that. And my question is, I looked that course up on the NMC catalog, and it's very kind of, it doesn't say a whole lot, it doesn't say much more than your description.
Yep.
But it looks like it's taught in several, it's like a canned course that a lot of universities are using. I think it was like Central and Ferris.
I would say it's pretty standard course
It's-
at
it's-
different universities for sure.
Yeah.
I think, and what we for sure try to do is when students are taking classes, making sure that their courses transfer to other universities.
And I was just wondering if actually it was put together outside of even NMC, and it was just kind of a standardized.
We can check on
Sort
that.
of thing. I was just
They generally
curious.
don't do a lot of that, because a lot of times they'd have to pay for it or that element. But I think obviously some people steal the best of others, in that way. But we'll take a look at that. But I would doubt it. But like I said, we'll check.
Not a big deal, just curious.
So hearing no objections, the committee will move this item to the full board. Next item is the 2024 TCAPS district course catalog draft. Again, I'll defer to Heidi.
Yeah, so we have a few updates, and so middle school is the first one. It used to say sixth grade beginning orchestra and cello, and it's moving to beginning orchestra and cello, so not just sixth grade. Same thing for the second one, string, bass. So those are just updated from having the sixth grade in the front of it to being able to allow other students to take it. The second course is high school course Biomedical Science A and Biomedical Science B. That was simply a naming change. So basically this year they had the courses that were paired, I think it was infectious disease with cancer and metabolic disease with neurological disorders, and they flipped the order. So same content, same changing of scope and sequence in the order, but it was just a better fit in kind of progression for that biomedical. And then we also have Algebra 1 Applied Concepts. Last summer, we sent teachers to AMPed algebra training. We felt like this was a good fit to make that shift to AMPed algebra, so still an applied learning opportunity for our kids. And then Trig Pre-Calc to Pre-Calc. And that was simply done, we had some good questions last night. That was not done for a change in curriculum, just to align with what regional and state naming conventions were. So no change in course at all, just change in name.
Can I ask a question? What's the sequence of math through the schools?
So I can give you the whole scope and sequence for math, but typically it depends on where the student is, but they would start in algebra and then go to geometry and then algebra 2, then pre-calc, used to be trig pre-calc, then students can choose from like an AB calc or BC calc options for choices. So if you want to see the full scope and sequence, like of courses that kids can take in math, I can share that with you. So it's really a broad progression. Students have the opportunity to take a lot of different math classes based on where they start. Because some students in middle school will leave middle school with geometry credit at the highest, right? And some algebra 2, so.
So algebra 2 would normally fall in 9th grade or 10th grade?
Depends on the student. 10th or 11th. Depends on the student, 10th or 11th grade. Again, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, pre-calc, or pre-calc as we're calling it now.
Remind me, where do our tag kids end up with a freshman in math generally? Is that
Algebra 2.
algebra 2? That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
they
Our
would
kids
come
that are
in,
our
yeah.
talented gifted program.
In 10th, they're in algebra 2. Because y'all made the change with the introductory, what were you calling it? The names kind of escape me. But it's the one where I went and saw, Josie and I went and saw the classes at West and at Central.
Oh, STEM. So those are your STEM 9 and STEM 10. And this year, it's actually, doesn't have the math integrated.
It
That
has
was
no
really easy.
math
That's
requirement.
correct. That does it. They still have, they choose their math based on, that was a little bit of our problem, is that we had kids that wanted to be in that, but some had started in tag. So, you know, you had literally 3 different grade levels possibly of math trying to put into that class and make fit. And so
Right.
we felt it was better to have the kids have their separate ability to be able to take whatever math fit and combine the ELA and the science to get it
And
was a better
then
fit.
there was more of a move to make it heavier in ELA,
Correct.
correct? So you didn't need as much of the technical math portion in that
Because they're
STEM.
taking their own math based on what their math level is.
Right.
And we found that to work quite a bit better.
It allowed for more kids to participate.
Correct.
And
It's confusing from like an outside perspective, but like I have kids that are actually in it and it just makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
Just because I've been living and breathing it, but from like someone that doesn't like see their choices and how they've progressed and going into the STEM program and that kind of thing, it is hard to kind of understand.
It's kind of hard to see where the math really begins to connect with the science,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what my concern is.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's certain levels of math you almost need to make the principles make sense.
You know, what I'd say is, you know, as you'll see here in a minute, I think that some of that gets into more of the engineering, into the engineering coursework. I think you'll see more of that now in the sequence that we're gonna talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
The new
Yeah.
changes, right.
Yeah.
And Heidi, you talked specifically about the pre-calculus. Is the AP pre-calc the same, just to align to the state? Did you get to that, or am I
Yes,
jumping
the same,
ahead?
exactly the
Okay,
same.
just
Yep.
the naming change to
you got
align.
naming
Okay.
conventions, yeah, for sure.
Okay, got it. And then, so here, no, and then are we gonna move into the new courses?
Yep.
Okay,
So I'm just making sure you're ready.
sorry.
So we're
all-
proposing
yeah.
3 new courses for next year, Innovation and Design 1, which will also include the opportunity for AP Seminar. And that is a course that combines all different foundational hands-on applications and really anything related to STEM, engineering, architecture, design. I think it even lists in here mechatronics. So an opportunity for students to take that embedded in their STEM 9 course or as a standalone. If they choose not to do the cohort option, they can still take that. The next level of that would be Innovation and Design 2. Again, it's really a progression of deeper dive learning into some personalized learning options for STEM and careers of their choosing. And students who, because we recognize that there are students who may have some background already based on experience. So a prerequisite is Innovation and Design 1 or instructor approval. So we left that option open to do that. There will be 2 semesters, an A and a B semester, so students can select one or both options. And then the last course option is that Advanced Innovation and Design A and B, typically 10th through 12th grade years. It will include an AP research component. So as we think about students doing their symposium projects, they would be able to use this class actually as part of the opportunity to develop and do some AP research.
These are great additions, really great additions.
And then we have the deletion of courses, and so you'll see 11 courses listed there. Advanced Engineering Design, Drones, Mapping, CAD, Computer Aided Design, and so on.
They're being taught in the 3 that were.
They're built in there. And again, you know, if we get in the future, as we get this, what we're trying to do is trying to get a concentration of kids to have numbers to really run some things. And if we get more expand, it's something, you know, that we can look at these again. So at Central, we've had a little bit more. So for instance, we're keeping coding, you know, in the deal. And at both schools, we have AP Computer Science. But would like to continue to add and have numbers, but we're just trying to really get something there that we get more numbers in. Because as we've talked to parents and feedback from the board, I know has had as well, is trying to get some things that we definitely can run with numbers of kids.
Because it just looks like we're taking 9, well, I guess 11 now, classes, and I don't know if those were semester classes or full year classes.
A mix of both. I would say that, you know, the hard part, this is one of the hardest parts we're going to have to continue to deal with is as our high school graduating classes get smaller, you just have only so many things you can run. There are only so many kids for so many courses. And so we have to look at, you know, that when kids sign up for classes, if you get 2 here, 3 here, 4 there, 1 there, 2 there, you don't have a concentration enough to
Sure.
run that. Then you're going back to kids and going, oh, well, you know, can you maybe take this instead? Well, I really don't want to do that. So trying to have something that's there. Like I said, I really don't love having to take things off of, you know, the course guide. I really want my kids to have as much selection as possible. At the same point, recognizing those issues, trying to get something that is strong enough, that has enough of different things packed into it to get kids to sign up for it and to actually be able to run.
Well, I guess then my next question is, how many kids in general you're tracking kids now into specific groups like
The
health
academic communities,
sciences
yep.
and
Yep.
approximately how many kids do we have? And they just take the same things, so 9th graders and 10th graders are mixed because you have just that class offered every so often, correct?
If then, you know, a lot of these, for instance, because I think at West this year, you know, we have one section, I think, of
Architectural.
architectural. We're not running AP Computer Science. That's it.
Will you offer it next year?
Again, we'll see what numbers are. It depends
Okay.
on what kind of happens with this year. We have a strong Simon Tech cohort. We have 40-something kids, you know, in that cohort. Well, let's see how they, you know, continue on here in these courses. And again, as you're splitting up maybe kids in the engineering versus the medical, what's that going to look like? So, you know, this is a little bit of learning, you know, is what we see with the kids choose and the pathways they choose from this point.
Okay, and it kind of goes back to my question that I sent you last night. Yeah, whether we have just a basic biology with lab, basic chemistry, basic physics, all with labs, you know, and you have those as general courses and they springboard into the other science and technical courses across the board.
Yeah, they all have labs. So every one of the classes you just referenced do have labs with them. Chemistry and biology, whether it's honors or regular, both have labs. Physics too, with the exception that physics is a choice science, it's not required. So students can choose that. They can choose environmental science. So it depends on their interest area, their course of choice. But all three of those do. In fact, I would say every one of our science courses, the students are in labs, hands-on learning, doing lab.
Okay. And so we do have a basic core science that every kid that graduates from West and Central would take.
That's correct.
We have 2 core that they must take, bio and chemistry. And then for their third science, because they have to have 3 years, they have a selection choice between physics, environmental science, 4 choices
Those
to
two.
complete those, yeah.
And how does biomed fit into that as well?
Biomed is an elective.
Biomed as
Science,
well.
yeah. So they can, a lot of students will take that because science only requires 3 years, but they have 4 years, right, that they could take it. So usually somewhere in there, biomed, if it's a health student, right, that's a selection choice for them. Yep.
And athletic training now as well.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
what?
Yep,
Athletic
athletic
training.
training.
Oh,
You're right,
yeah.
we do have
Is
that.
that it?
We'll talk about that later too.
Yeah. So, if we keep moving along here, are there any objections, or can we go ahead and move this to the full board? Okay, we'll move this to the full board, and we'll continue on with the goal progress report, NWEA mid-year data, and again, Miss Heidi will lead us in that.
Yeah, so we are still in the process. There's still people that are testing. So we hit it kind of based on when the school board meetings are. So by the school board meeting, you'll have that traditional sheet that you usually see with like the percentage of growth from fall to winter. This is the preliminary because I thought it was important for you guys to at least see the preliminary report. And I'm going to open it and kind of talk to you about kind of what you see in this report and also talk about what teachers see in a report this later on. So when you look at this, any of the orange triangles, let's see if you guys are winner. What are the orange triangles? See if you learned anything from our presentation last time. Anybody know?
Grade level norms.
Oh, good reader. Good reader, Erica. Superstar. So anytime you see that blue bar,
Yes.
yeah, anytime you see that blue bar above those triangles, we know we've kind of beat our anticipated growth. And anytime they're under, it means we didn't quite meet where we thought we were going to be. So I have included every school for you to see. And again, these are preliminary on Bruce, I think, closes the window today, and the rest will populate. And then we'll get that other report for you. But this is interesting because you're able to see grade levels by school and look at where we were hitting the mark and where maybe we are a little bit behind for spring, right? So that's when we go in and we dive in and we look at like what are the areas of growth or classes that seem to be consistent across the board. If you go through here, if you had time to do that, you'll notice that 4th grade math and ELA is probably one we want to take a little bit closer look at. But for the most part, they've done very well at meeting our midpoint goals for winter. So, and in some cases, far exceeded. So, super excited about where the data is coming in at. But again, you'll have the full report to see exactly where we landed at the end. So we have one of these for each school for you to look at and review for both math and ELA. Let me zoom out a little bit. I think there we go. And so 4th grade, you'll notice, is an area in both math and ELA that seems to be lagging. And some of that has to do with what we find. Some of that has to do with when benchmark standards are introduced. So typically by the end of the year, you'll see that they actually do meet their goals in the end. But that's where we're at our midpoint. So 4th grade, at least one of the ones that I noticed was 4th grade. And in some cases, kindergarten and 3rd. And so take some time to look through this, knowing that you're going to have an updated set of these, as well as what our actual percentage growth is at each school by grade level in that final report that we present to the full board. So, but these are interesting to look at to see where we're at. I was pleased by the results, but certainly some areas to look at.
And you said you're going to present on a deeper level at the full board?
We'll have these still to share, and then do you remember the the goal reporting sheet.
Yeah.
It shows, it could be percentages of special ed students, how they are performing, non-traditional students. It also shows by grade level, by school, the percentage. So we predict, like what percentage, we predicted, I think, 2% in reading and 1% in math by the end of the year growth. We're gonna exceed that, but it will show us where we are at that midpoint mark. The other thing to note is there, and Dr. Van Wagner, maybe you want to talk a little bit about this, is there's conversations again about the M-STEP. So the M-STEP is something that Michigan creates. We come together and teachers help develop and create what those standards are on those M-STEP tests. And there's conversations again about how are we making sure we're nationally normed tests. So NWA is a nationally normed test. So we can look at how our students are comparing to all students across the United States on their achievement levels and their growth levels, both. And so that conversation has come up again because the idea is that when we're comparing apples to apples, we're comparing an M-STEP testing assessment, which is Michigan only, and it's not nationally normed to everyone else.
So there are some conversations about possibly the state again shifting to NWA or iReady, this type of assessment, so we wouldn't have to do both. But we're not there, but there's some getting conversations again on that.
Again, and when you say again,
So the last time that the conversation was really strong was when Brian Whiston was state superintendent and he passed away. And it kind of stopped.
Drove him
Yep.
into the grave.
Right, and it kind of stopped. And so we're back again now. There's lots of conversation and some folks in the legislature are beginning to say we have too much testing, with all these benchmark assessments and the state created assessment. Why not do one that's a benchmark like we do? And, we'll see.
What other parameters do you think would be worth looking at to see how kids are doing? Would attendance be something to look at? Are there just other things besides
We
testing?
do. I'll tell you that ABC, attendance, behavior, and grades, are the other things that we often look at with kids to see if they are on track from a, towards graduation standpoint. Those are, often along with this, those are some of those other components we look at. Attendance has really become tough in the last couple of years. I can tell you, when I first came into the district, was really beginning to push something I had done in my former district on an attendance initiative. It was Strive for 5. Be there every day of school, letting parents know how important it was to be in school. And then COVID hit. And then so you had, this deal of, well, do kids come to school sick? Do they not? And you were kind of sending this mixed message, that's out there that we haven't totally resolved how to do that yet because it was so important. People are sending their kids to school sick, so that attendance, no doubt, it's hard to learn when you're not there. But I think that that's something we've got to continue to try and figure out and try and find ways to make sure parents know how important their kids are at school.
And each of the schools have what we refer to as an early warning system. So they're identifying that exactly. I know at least at the high school and middle school levels, they pull grades each week. They look at attendance and they look at what kids they need to connect with to support. So they do have those early warning systems in place to identify, but Dr. Van Wagner's right about attendance is a struggle since COVID. So it's very interesting because we know there's a direct correlation between achievement and attendance. But since COVID, it has been a struggle for sure.
So one of the other things I'll mention to you is that for our study session that we're going to do, our first one will have our elementary folks, and there'll be an opportunity to talk about some of the things that they're doing in their buildings based on this data that they're seeing and what they're trying to work with teachers and kids on. So you'll get to see a deeper dive into a couple of our buildings on that specifically to see what they're doing.
So how we could look at achievement besides the testing?
They'll give you a chance of the whole picture of what they're working on with their buildings.
And then the curriculum is basically unchanged, isn't it? Across the board, the math program didn't
Yeah.
get changed. So at some point, it might even be interesting to look at how fourth graders are doing with the same curriculum over time, you know, and to start looking at some of
And is
that.
there something missing? You know,
Yeah.
that's what we look at.
For sure. The next part of the goal progress report I wanted to share with you is they've created in the last few years some really good reports for teachers and principals to be able to look at. So they've kind of shifted to a more interactive approach, and this is an example of what a teacher or administrator would see. So you're able to see this quadrant graph, and basically it indicates, and you probably have seen this before in a different form, but really if we see students over here or classes over here, we know they have high achievement and high growth, which is the gold standard, right? We want everybody up in the upper right-hand corner. If we see students over here, low achievement and high growth, a lot of times this is where some of our special education students would see. So if we still see high growth but possibly low achievement, a lot of times that means that's good because we're growing in the right direction. But our goal is to get them to the other side on that right-hand side. The ones we don't like to see are the ones with low achievement, low growth. Like we want all our classes and all our students trending over in this direction. And then here you have high achievement. So you have high achievement. And we know if students are high achievers, their growth sometimes is slower than students who are at a lower level. So what we don't like to see though still is high achievement and low growth. We still want to make sure no matter where a student is at in their learning, they're still able to experience high achievement, which means we have the rigor in place for students who are excelling and supports in place for students who are struggling to get them all to that high achievement, high growth area.
And Heidi, real quick, so on this
Yes.
example,
Yep.
those are actual individual students, is that right? Or are
These-
those individual buildings?
These are individual grade levels on this one,
Okay.
but they have it all the way down to individual students. So a
Okay.
teacher in the classroom can see each of her students and how much that student grew
Okay.
in math and ELA. So math, ELA, so they're able to see individual student growth on a matrix like this. A principal would look at this one and look at grade levels for their building, right? So what classrooms, what grade levels are actually showing growth. So this is an example when you look at this one, you see the green, it's even indicated in green, it's doing very well. The little S here, this box with an S, indicates overall school growth. So overall, the school that we're looking at right now is showing that it has overall high achievement, high growth. And so these are all reports that are available to principals and to teachers to look at individual student growth, as well as that growth for individual classrooms and for the school.
And if I may,
Yeah.
I would just add that what happens at the building level is that 3 times a year, there is a really intensive look at these reports specifically. So it's both that percentile growth index that was the first graph that came up. And this report in particular is incredibly helpful because it really is looking at all students and their capacity. We would always say we want to move them up and over. Like every student should be able to move up on this graph because it's indicating that they're growing. Even if they're growing at a rate that might be slower than their peers, they should be growing. And then we obviously want to move them to the right to show that they're scoring above that 50th percentile in achievement. But this is a really helpful report for teachers and principals because you can literally track that trend line. And it's looked at in those full data review meetings that are occurring 3 times a year across all elementary buildings.
When you,
Go ahead.
when you look at, like at an administrative level, does it also then indicate when you look at your buildings, like just elementary buildings, and you have one in a quadrant, that then more resources would go to that building specifically to help change?
Well, I think you dig into it, and feel free to jump in, but I think you dig into it in many ways. I think you look at the overall student population, like where their growth has occurred and whether is there a need in ELA, is there a need in math, what is the actual need for that classroom. You also look at overall growth by grade level in classroom to see if something else might be missing, right? Because then that speaks to what Beth is talking about is, do we have gaps in our curriculum somewhere that might support that we're missing? And so I think Kirsten can speak to the holes that she's plugging right now with ELA in supporting some of that.
Yeah, so we can certainly as a district recognize that particularly in our foundational skills in ELA, our current program is not attacking those skills in the way that we know is best aligned to research. And we've got lots of different data points that help us understand that. So absolutely, we look specifically at that trend line. We look to see, as Heidi said, we recognize fourth grade. Is that an anomaly? Is that just at this year? Most of the time, we see that if it's a big off like that by the end of the year, that our students have caught up. Yeah, and that usually just is an indicator that kids just haven't been taught what they were exposed to on that test yet, right? So it's just a pacing issue.
And it's nationally normed, so you're getting, it's not just a Michigan TCAPS
Right.
assessment.
But when we see year after year, several years in a row where we're seeing again, like, okay, we have an identified gap, then we have to dig a little deeper. And when you get into NWEA, you can even break it down by strands. It will tell you how kids are doing on particular strands within the assessment itself. That's very helpful. That's way more helpful than this generic score. So for language arts, we recognized our foundational program needs to have more explicit instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics, so we have then supplemented with the program to do that until we get to a point where right now we're in this complete adoption cycle. So by the year 25-26, we'll be looking at a new ELA curriculum. So what we're doing right now is sort of toggling to say, we still are engaged in journeys. That's our curriculum right now. We recognize we have 2 more years with that program. We recognize based on data that there's some gaps to that curriculum. So we're attempting to plug those. And we're wanting to make sure that whatever we choose next is going to make sure that we've addressed those areas that we've seen as a deficit. So these reports are helpful at every level of our organization. They're helpful in determining for specific students what we might need to do next, for buildings where we might need to trend, and also for our district when we're making big decisions related to purchases.
And in comparison, the M-STEP, lagging indicator. So we actually don't get our scores back
Agree about that.
until the next year. And so this is really how we're looking at progression throughout the year, and has been a great tool because we have such historical data with NWEA too.
And it could really save Michigan some money
You could.
to get rid of
It
it.
could.
As well as time and
Time, money, management, for sure.
irritation.
Time in class.
Yeah.
Time in
Kids'
class.
frustration with so much
Change.
Yes.
Because what really happens, particularly at certain grade levels, 5th grade has 4 different M-STEP assessments and NWEA. Those kids are taking a significant amount of assessments that we have no choice but to administer, right? We use NWEA in a very meaningful way. We don't want to abandon that. Yet we recognize that because M-STEP still exists, we're going to take M-STEP as well. So.
And so moving on from that, you'll see that now if the principal were to hover over one of those dots, they can see what grade level it came from and classroom. They're able to look at that. From there, you're actually able to see the number of students that took the test in the classroom, achievement percentiles, and RIT scores. And from there, even further, you can look at observed growth and projected growth for the student, what is expected for each individual student. And this is a sample, this isn't any of our students, so it's a sample we got from NWA. Now this, then, it also takes it a step further. So when you're looking at a report on a particular student, you can look at instructional areas and growth areas. So if I wanted to know, if I wanted to dig down into a particular student, I could actually analyze where that student, what their next step in their learning was, based on how they scored on NWA. So right now it says this student is ready to develop the skills below. It talks about the RIT score for the student and talks about what they're ready for next. So this is shown by topic as well as by standard. So you can look at the standards in math and ELA and look at where the student's next step might be. So pretty powerful because you can look at even really groupings of students, like where students need support together and where can you work in groups. So it helps you actually group your students for support, as well as gives you an overall learning continuum. Like where are all your students in your class based on those standards and those skills to have a good understanding, because we don't want to pair students in the same groups all the time if you have skills in one area and maybe need support in the other. So this comes in very handy in identifying the correct placement for groupings and where students actually are at in their learning.
And then that translates into what we get as parents home.
Yes.
That shows our, where our child's at, on a comparison.
Growth over time.
Yeah, growth
Yes.
over time, which is
Yes.
hard to understand if you don't read through, you got to dig into that a little bit to understand it. But yeah, a good tool too as a parent to kind of know how they're performing compared to others. So.
Yes, for sure.
Well, good. Any other questions? So we'll go ahead and move this item to the full board as well. And then we'll jump into informational items. So first informational item is our part of our learning series, innovative programming. So again, Heidi will lead this.
Yes, so I'm going to start today. We have Gina Stein with us, and she, along with Shelley Spencer, have been amazing partners getting this off the ground, which actually started with Dr. Van Wagner in a meeting at Munson. Was it August? September?
Yeah, somewhere on there.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere, yeah.
And so Gina's here today because I thought it would be great to hear from Munson on our partnership and how it's developing. So we're going to tag team a little bit today, and she has been a tremendous resource for us.
Welcome, Gina.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I'm so happy to be here and have really enjoyed the partnership with Heidi. She's taught me how to master Google Docs too. So we have just great partnership with this group. We have so many players from TCAPS. I'm just elated with the representation from the elementary, middle, and high school. We also have several Munson healthcare leaders, some physicians, the Career Tech Center, and then NMC, and then our additional partners with Grand Valley from both local as well as their main campus. This other program, the Seed, Grow, and Harvest, Dr. Schimmerhorn, a neurosurgeon here locally, was part of a group in Colorado, and just he has such a passion for really getting students involved in healthcare. And so he was part of this work group and presented this program for introducing healthcare to students. And so really, this is just a brief summary of it, but really the SEED is recognizing and foster the student interest in healthcare professions. So starting young, giving them exposure, and then giving them something to think about as they're taking their classes. And then growth, placing them on pathways in rural, and the focus for this program was in a rural area, and so introducing them to the entry-level positions, and then Harvest, graduating them and employing these individuals as newly licensed healthcare workers. And so some of the strategies were to develop defined high school pathways that entwine education, opportunities with real-world experiences, and then exposing the students early on to healthcare career opportunities. And then prior to graduation, providing a strategy of educational and career opportunities that address the various needs of the students. Should probably back up a bit. This is what our focus is as we've kind of met together, did the brainstorm with the groups for all these partners. These are the strategies that we've developed with all the members. One of the other things was to create paid employment opportunities throughout the journey. So giving them the opportunity while they're in high school to get paid, kind of work and see what other healthcare roles are out there. And then finally, supplement established counseling and coaching resources with leader mentors from Munson. So making sure that all of the high school counselors are aware of some of the programs, certifications, things that are available in our community.
And continued and repeated exposure. So not just one and done, which is what we have been experiencing, but making sure we have a plan for it.
Absolutely. So as a team, we decided our guiding principles are to keep it simple, to understand and execute on, connect the dots so that the students don't have to, as well as also making it easy for the parents to make sure that they have an understanding. So many times they are not sure, or they'll hear of something and then call and inquire, but we want the parents to be able to have a good knowledge base. And then make it financially enticing for the students and families. Make sure they know kind of what resources are available. And have a clearly defined partner with touch points so that everyone knows how and when and to intersect with the program, so they aren't kind of like, who do I contact for what? Making sure that it's a well-oiled machine. And then plan, experiment, execute, learn, and iterate.
And so the journey that we started with, we started the first time grounding ourselves in what that work-based learning continuum could look like, and making sure we're keeping the awareness that it's a K-12 plus college and beyond journey. And so we explored really what does awareness look like for elementary students, and then what does exploration look like maybe for middle school students. And then preparation, are we able to offer activities for students to actually continue to engage them in healthcare careers as they move through that continuum K through 12? And then the last piece is that training piece. How are we embedding training opportunities for students? And this falls in line with the national and state curriculum for national and state focus for work-based learning continuum and what that could look like as we move on. So we grounded our work and conversations really in opportunities that were based around these areas. And we started by looking at, Shelley brought in this little graphic of like, I really want to know, students are all different. When they start on their pathway, what does it look like if a student is coming from an elementary school and knows right away they want a healthcare career versus a student that decides they want a healthcare career at high school? And what do those journeys look like? Some could choose to go to the tech center. Some could choose to take AP courses and be on a different track. So really pushed us to look at what our current state is and what we currently do within TCAPS. So our next meeting, we came up with current state. What are we currently doing to support it PK5 all the way through that 13th year and beyond if a student is an early middle college student? And identify those pathways for students. And in our case, we're calling them journeys. What does the journey for a student look like? And they could look different for all students, but how are we making sure we give on-ramps no matter where that student is in their journey? So our last meeting that we had, we defined really where our focus areas were. And these were really taken by feedback from principals, Munson, from our college reps that are there, and looked at the areas that we're going to target and go after first. And some of these you'll see, you've probably heard that we already do within our programming for schools, but it's not in a systematic, well-planned way. And Gina and I talk about this. Munson gets phone calls like one-off, like, oh, hey, if you know someone, then all of a sudden you have somebody coming into your classroom. But how do we create sustained experiences for students in a systematic way so we know all students, no matter if they're at Blair or at Eastern, they're having an opportunity to do that. A lot of our conversations, actually, I sat at the elementary table for quite some time, and the conversation was about how are we determining like what every kindergartner gets or what every first grader gets as an experience. And so being able to figure out how to offer those experiences at elementary, whether it's reading a book and having a healthcare professional come in, but defining what those look like in a systematic way. And you'll see that with all the target areas and the grade level groups, as well as the one in the center bottom we find to be probably one of the most important, and that's that marketing and communication. So do we know all families and community members and students know about our early middle college and dual enrollment opportunities? Do they know about the opportunity to partnership with Munson and the opportunities that are available to pursue healthcare careers? So making sure marketing is strong on the Munson side as well as the TCAP side, and looking for opportunities to partner in ways that make it a little bit easier for parents to find the pathway and students.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
In terms of that marketing piece, Gina, is there things that Munson is doing that students should know about in terms of incentives for jobs in the healthcare industry at Munson?
Sure. We've had a couple of different interviews with the ticker as we've had partnerships. So there's been the Michigan Reconnect. So we've been brought in on that when they first launched at 25 and 21 for anyone that's going back to careers. And then probably about 6 weeks ago, there was a real launch for all these different certifications that NMC is providing as well that are low cost, less than a year. So we have been involved in that, but in terms of like a broad where it's with the schools, no. And so instead of just having, smatterings of this, we really want a program that is seamless, and so they know the expectations, so they can talk with their kids when they're planning their middle school, whether they're doing their career tech visit. Then we have healthcare people at Munson, so they can talk, so they can think about this. And we also learned that elementary families are more involved with their kids, so we're like, okay, that's important too. So we know that that's an opportunity, but again, we want it to be all part of this, so we don't miss a touch point with the parents.
And so the last meeting we had was really the teams getting together and looking at what their goals are. So, whoops, sorry, too quick on the click. So each of those, when you click on this, let me see, can I get to it? Yes, here we go. So it goes through the goals. The same goals that were on that priority map are listed here. And then each team started to develop like what is their draft plan. The next time we meet, they're gonna have their draft plan finalized, and we're gonna talk about like what's the low-hanging fruit, what do we hit first, and where are we headed next. So it's been really a great partnership and understanding between the college level, the high school level, middle school, elementary, and Munson about opportunities that will become available. So super thankful for that partnership. It's been great so far, and a lot of things have already come about because of it, and we look forward to continuing with the partnership. So,
And we have 3 phases.
yep, we do.
We have 3 phases, so we know there are so many things that we wanted to tackle, but really we had to kind of scale it back and think about what was realistic, as our goal is to launch this in the fall, so while still doing several career day events and trying to attend as many events we still can this spring.
This is awesome. I mean, I remember, I sort of have a feeling, I'm not positive here, but this stems from our trip to Kettle Moraine. Would I venture to guess
So
that
as
this
we've
is
talked
connecting
about,
those dots?
when we
of
talked about this, kind of the Symatech and
Cyber health.
Simon Health, right, is what are more opportunities we can create for our kids from that. And so that was really just kind of about the internships, but we've seen some districts that are doing things with World of Work, like at the elementary level and things, and I think, so, but yeah, I mean, this was a big piece of the original meeting I set up at Munson to just kind of throw out there, like, we would like to do something. They said, we'd like to do something, so here's kind of what it's becoming, and the team's doing a great job with it.
And is this, Gina, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but has TCAPS ever had this sort of partnership before in the past?
I don't
Not
think so.
systematic. It's
No.
been like, we've had kids there on internships. We always have guest speakers, but again, it's like one-off calls.
Yeah.
So not in a way that actually would help support growth, so they have the people they need in healthcare
Yeah,
right.
in Traverse City,
Awesome.
and our students have opportunities.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
what a great, you know, sometimes it's just opening the door for those students to realize that, you know, like you said, those courses or certifications at NMC to connect the dots that, you know, you're not talking about a 10-year degree or something, you know, like it's a 1 year and it's a certification, and then look at the doors that can open for those students and provide you know, a earning, you know, to have a good living, and then of course fill those gaps for Munson where we are short-staffed and so
And
great.
also part of the journey we talked about, which actually has been a critical part, is students can build from where they are. So if they go in as a medical assistant, I
Right.
probably have terminology wrong, you would know better than me. But if they go in as a medical assistant, they can work there for a certain amount of time, and then what is their next step?
That's right. And Munson's done a really good job. Just I have had friends that, you know, start at one level, but then are introduced to other certifications to move up.
Yes.
Or to move into a different interest. So, yeah, so that's great. Wow.
Yeah,
really
and
great.
there's a lot of dollars through Networked Northwest. So we've been launching apprenticeship programs through the MA. We're doing Search Tech, so we have a strong partnership there. So sometimes, you know, getting those students exposed and having them job shadow or even take an entry-level position, once they get inside the building, they are aware of other jobs. It's like you don't even know what you don't know unless you've had a family work in healthcare.
Right.
You just wouldn't even have an idea, and then they start interacting with people, and they find out like what do you have to do, and you know what's on the job training, and
Yeah.
there's career ladders within many of these job families, and so there's really a lot of opportunities. So we feel like it's an untapped market.
Yeah, you know, you'd probably ask a student that say, you'd ask them, hey, who works at a hospital? A doctor or a nurse?
Right.
Yeah.
You
Not,
don't.
not an
So
accountant,
many.
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
billing. I mean, there's so many of those. That's the one piece that we've kind of explored, you know, an understanding of the opportunities of. They're the
Of
largest
support.
employer in our region. It's not just people, just even in the medical field, you know. So that's important pieces for us to try and connect to.
Right, so a lot of this first phase focus is on Traverse City, and then we want it to expand for all of our communities because we want Grayling and Cadillac and Frankfurt, we want them all to have opportunities. So. And the students.
Yeah, so great. Well, thank you for that learning series. That
Yep.
is really awesome. And
You have a question, Beth?
Just a
sorry,
quick question.
Yeah.
And this is kind of off to the side, and it kind of goes in with the state's interest in financial literacy, and to do something similar, you know, so that you bring it all the way through the whole curriculum from pre-K up on finance. You know, how to use money, how to plan, how to connect the dots, how to logically approach dealing with resources. That I think
That
that's
practical approach to what you
Oh,
need.
very
Yeah.
much so, because they supplement each other. You know, nurses need to know basic math.
Yeah, and I think this is really based on that exposure and practical applications, applied applications to it. So, very excited.
Cool. That is fantastic. Thank you.
And Gina, I know you want to stay for the whole meeting, but don't feel like you have to.
Such a nice surprise to see Gina.
And thank you again for
Yeah,
all
thank
your
you. It's
work,
been great.
you and
No.
Shelley for sure, and it's just been a great partnership.
It has. Really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks for being here
Yeah,
with
thank
us,
you.
Gina.
Thanks
Keep
for
on going.
having me.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so we'll keep on moving. We'll move on to the professional development. So Dr. Van Wagner.
Still in the innovation.
Oh, sorry,
Hold
sorry,
on.
sorry,
That's
sorry.
Hold on.
what it's here for. So another thing to highlight on the innovation side is we have our partnership in full play again with TC High and NMC. We have 16 students from Traverse City High School on campus taking the NMC EDU 100 class. Each student was provided a Chromebook that they can use and take home whenever they need to, and we have a very dynamic instructor that is a great fit as a coach and supporter of TC High kids, Kristen Salathiel, which is the teacher who's at NMC. So very excited about this opportunity for our students. This is just the beginning of offering opportunities at NMC and helping them see the students at Traverse City High School what their next steps could be. So very excited about the progress here. Lindsay Dickinson has been a super supporter and connector for this work. Another innovative that came out of our innovation work is really Portrait of the Graduate. If you're a West parent and it's starting to trickle through now, you'll start to see students of the week identified for their areas related to the Portrait of the Graduate. Teachers nominate students, thinking about how it connects to the work that's happening in the class. So Portrait of the Graduate, we began, if you remember, last year, and it's starting to be implemented and integrated throughout the schools. Another area to look at is expansion of college partnerships. So we have an expansion really of numbers of dual enrollment in early middle college students, as well as that TC partnership. At Grand Valley State, we have sports medicine, 2 to 6 credits. There's 3 different courses they are working to do direct credit with us instead of articulated credit, which there's a difference, and I'll talk about that in just a second. With Ferris State, we have business technology is articulated, accounting is articulated credit, meaning the students automatically get credit for those courses if they attend Ferris State University. And the architectural drawing A and B courses, they receive 3 credits, and it's direct credit. So that means that that course could be transferred anywhere outside of Ferris. So the difference between direct and articulated is one is articulated into the school as credit, one can be transferable to other schools. And we are well on our way for the business and accounting to be actually moved to direct credit. So that will be great for our students who want to attend there or other universities. And then in August, you remember, we signed our Olivet Direct Partner meeting, which gives our students an advantage on enrollment and scholarships to attend the University of Olivet. One of the things very interesting I found out about Olivet is it is 100%, started as 100% Pell Grant supported university when it started. So lots of interesting connections there. And then we still have our Michigan Tech $4,000 scholarship for completer SMT students if they select to go to Michigan Tech. So lots of work on the college partnership pieces and more to come there. So we're in a very interesting time. So it used to be that you would partner primarily with community colleges, and 4-year universities are very interested in how to support this effort to partner and help kids get a leg up before they actually attend their colleges. So expansion of college partnerships was a highlight. The next one to highlight is what we're coming into next, which is that TC High visioning, and looking at what our current state is for Traverse City High School and looking at visioning what could be next. We have spent a lot of time visiting some innovative schools and looking at what might be best fit the needs of the students at TC High to help them move forward and advance in their academic careers. So we are looking forward to that. We have meetings set for February, and the March dates are yet to be determined. Project-based learning, we have our academic communities that came about. So we have the arts, the global, and STEM. You've heard a lot about those, and you'll continue to hear more about those as we start to solidify those course opportunities for students. Our next step there is making sure that students, it's equal or equitable access to those programs for students, and making sure there's on-ramps for students to get in at different times. We also had the Quartade Creative Explorers Club, where it was a STEM-focused title funded experience for students, and any student could sign up and participate. And I was able to go over there 2 times, and it was just incredible. There was not a student, every single student was engaged. The engagement was for sure off the charts, and they were doing anything from basic block coding to even just your hand coding, like what would you do if you wanted to move right or to left. So lots of problem solving, computational thinking skills, and this is really our talked a lot to Andy about, the opportunity for that to not just be a standalone after school, but how are we able to offer opportunities for kids like that during the school day, and starting to think creatively about what that might look like. So certainly a thing to celebrate because of the engagement and how much the students enjoyed it. How are we able to replicate that and maybe pilot it in a different way. The next is the Local College Access Network. And so an LCAN is really designed about making sure all students have opportunities for higher education, whether it's dual enrollment, early middle college, and what their next steps are. These are the areas of focus as you start to put together a team, and this is what we're working on right now. So March 4th, I think, is our first launch meeting date that we'll have with, and I think I list them later on. But yes, so a local college access network really requires lots of support from the business community, from K-12, from nonprofit, from government, from higher education, again, similar to what you see in that Munson partnership. How are you bringing people together to help support that vision of all students having access to higher education if they choose? And this is just a little bit of an overview of the process that you go through to identify your priority areas and to start a local college access network for support. Our goal is to start it for the Grand Traverse region. In many cases, they start it just for specific school districts, but we have students coming from all over, and it doesn't make sense just to necessarily do it just for TCAPS, but how are we supporting throughout the Grand Traverse community?
And just
Yeah.
real quick, so that is a statewide initiative for the Michigan College Access Network. And so there is funding that is behind this as well that helps us support. Our hope eventually is to be able to have a person that is an executive director that works maybe part-time, we'll just kind of see where it goes, but that actually helps organize these things and eventually to be able to help our counselors with things like a FAFSA night. Things like field trips for kids to go see colleges, those kind of things. So the first steps to this is that we have to create this advisory board, and then we can begin to look at, for instance, a lot of them have AmeriCorps members that come in and serve a year, and they actually work with students, and especially our kids that maybe are our first generation, kids that maybe haven't seen themselves as a college or trade school is a big part of this as well, to do that. But this is the first steps to be able to have access to some of their funding and to actually help us establish a person that will help to lead that work in our region.
And the last one to highlight is that Digital Promise Learner Center Collaborative. And Kristen, did you want to talk about that a little bit? Or you want me to just keep going?
No, go ahead, no. So after we received the feedback from our listening tour and our perception survey or data, we have shared it with administrators this last week. We've gone over the district data and asked them to take a look at where they see gap areas and recommendations. And then we will be sharing with them their building data specific. And then this Wednesday, Tiffany and I, along with KK Owen, will be one of our I can't remember the consultants from that we are using are going to be doing this with the culture and climate team. And the same thing, we're going to be looking at gap areas and making recommendations based on what we're hearing. So more information will be coming here next month in February once we've done that, and the recommendations from those two teams. So we're excited to share that, excited about the data. Really good stuff to highlight the work that's been happening, but also still areas that we have to improve related to culture and climate.
And so I would say all of these items have come from either our exploration of what is best practice in other areas and how we're going to tackle and try to implement some of the things in TCAPS. So still a lot more work to do for sure, but certainly a lot of work already done. So
That's a lot.
it was
But, I think of, you will remember, especially Erica, like you said, things that we saw at Kettle Moraine. You'll see things here from our participation in the League of Innovative Schools with Digital Promise. So, a lot of the ventures and things we've done are leading to a lot of opportunity in this work that, we've seen some real cool things.
and growth for our district as far as, really opportunities for students. And making sure we rival what's happening in schools in the Metro Detroit areas. They have lots of opportunities.
But not necessarily the choice schools.
Not necessarily.
But sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, that's great. A lot of work. Thank you for all the work, and just excited to actually be serving on this board that is doing so many cool things. So, so really appreciative of all of you that are doing the work. So, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, all good stuff. Well, good. Any other questions? No? Okay, so we'll move on to professional development.
Okay, so this is one. So another new opportunity. Through our membership in the League of Innovative Schools, we've had some opportunities for some scholarships to what's called the ASU GSV Conference. And so those acronyms are for Arizona State University and Global Silicon Valley. This is a really neat opportunity. I had the chance and was sponsored myself to be able to go last year through Michigan Virtual. That was given some scholarships. But what this is it's about 6,000 people that come together in the very much the entrepreneurial world, especially in the education technology space. You get K-12 and higher ed people, and you get the most interesting part of this is that you get people that are funders. And some of the large foundations around the country, and it all comes together. And these are people that are doing startups a lot of times, and what they are looking for is ways that they can help K-12 education be able to improve. And the interesting thing is that this conference actually awards $1 million to the #1 startup they think will make a difference to K-12 education. And then the second place I think gets $500,000, third place $250,000, fourth $100,000, and it kind of just goes down. I think they give 25 awards. But interesting group, and so I've been sponsored in the past, and so I just want to let the board know. I do plan on having Heidi go at this point. Dan Tisworth is also going to go this year. We don't need for anybody but myself approval from the board. I will tell you that I get a full scholarship and my hotel and everything. I actually take personal time with this. I never want a conflict of interest if we were to ever use a vendor that comes through this that I recommend. So I just want you to know that we do have some folks that are doing that. It'll be approved under me. But my own personal scholarship that I have through this, I'll be taking personal vacation time as a part of this to do it, just to make sure that there's a transparency there, that if there's ever some vendor out of this that came that we wanted to work with, that it wasn't a bid pro quo kind of thing where they paid my way to be able to do everything and for me to do that. But I thought it was important enough to let the board know we have some folks going to this and being a part of this. And I think from Michigan, districts, we have about 26 districts that have been given scholarships. But Michigan Virtual only gets one. And so I was able to get Heidi that one through Michigan Virtual. I was able to get one through the League of Innovative Schools from that standpoint. And then Dan, we were able to get the registration covered through League of Innovative Schools as well. So just wanted to let you know on that, and we'll make sure to share different things that we see to come back to the group with that.
Will you, the ASU, Arizona State, GVS, what's the acronym? I missed that.
It's Global Silicon Valley.
Global
And they're a large Silicon Valley uniter of startups and investors / foundations. I'll tell you, it's a weird crew. I mean,
Yeah, I can't imagine.
it's
it,
not,
actually.
but I will tell you that it blew my mind going there of what they're working on with AI. So we got to see last year the beginnings of where like the AI stuff was headed. And so what you get there are people now that are taking, so like we had the chance to talk to Sal Khan, if you've heard Khan Academy. So we got to hear Sal Khan start to talk about how he thinks AI is going to go into the K-12 education sector and look at AI tutoring. these things. So now it'll be interesting this year, of now a year into it, of what some of these startups and people are starting to do with it and what that looks like. So I'll give you an example. One of the neat things we saw, and a lot of these are not there yet, but one of the ones that I think took second place was a tutoring platform where teachers around the world are being used as tutors, and they're taking advantage of time zones for teachers that want to earn a little bit more to be able to work before or after school and be able to work as an in-class teacher working with groups of kids that are at risk. So you can have a teacher, for instance, that's in California that wants to work an hour before their teaching shift to make a little extra money, is working in a classroom on the East Coast that's already into their school day. And then vice versa. But then you have people that are in China, India, Pakistan, all over, that are doing that, and the platform allows and gives you another teacher in the classroom to be able to help in that way. Wow. Right? So that was just one of 1,000 that were there. So it's just really, really interesting to see. And what it helps us to do is think about, okay, seeing what's coming next, and where are we going? So Evan has a team right now that's beginning to work on AI and what that means for us and what our policies are and those kind of things. And so this, this kind of puts it in to see what are the next things that are being thought of by these entrepreneurs in this way. It's really, really interesting.
It's nice to hear about AI being used in a positive instead of teaching kids or helping kids cheat.
Well, and that's part of what's there. So, and the neat thing is they bring in educators, and so we get the chance to do presentations and things on what we maybe see, and we get the chance to interact with these folks to give them. They will come. Some of these startups will come up to you and say, please tell me what your problems are with this, so that I can try and be the person to solve it." Mm-hmm. Because on their end, from a entrepreneurial spirit, if they could be the next Google, they could be the next whatever, that's what they're seeking to do. Mm-hmm. Many computer programmers, it's just really, really interesting to be able to sit with these people. And as an educator, I'll be honest with you, my first year, it was, at first I was extremely, I wasn't comfortable, just because you had 6,000 people there, and about 4,000 of the people work in the K-12 education space, but have never worked in a school.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's just really, really interesting that way of sitting and learning that. So I get the chance to take some other people this year, and so we'll make sure to share after we come back of what we saw.
It's exciting, and our membership in the League of Innovative Schools is the gift that just keeps on giving.
It is the gift that keeps giving, for sure.
It
Yep.
is.
Lots of learning.
Good way to put it.
The thing that you're a little bit concerned about, though, is it sounds like it has the potential to be a low touch, sort of a lot of information, but the human interpersonal touch is kind of low.
No,
And
it's
a lot
actually,
of these
there is very
kids-
high. But that's what they're trying to, some of them are trying to do is say, where does the medium land here, right? And that's what we're there, trying to figure that out. Like what is it that you use this for and what don't you? So there are people that are contemplating that. Like how do you, how is it, what's the proper way to use this, but yet still keep those interpersonal opportunities in those things, versus it just being 100% relied on the computer to do so. That's the part we're trying to figure out. And so there are a lot of people there. That's the nice thing. It's not a virtual conference. Everybody comes together there for the purpose of, which is interesting.
That they would choose that
Yes.
as opposed to do it virtually.
But they recognize
but
the
it
want
goes
and need
virtual.
for that,
Yeah.
and that's the part we're gonna have to, just quite frankly, wrestle with all this is, where is it proper, where is it not, what do we want it to do, what do we not want it to do? How does that fit into curriculum?
And really, how are we preparing students with
Yeah.
no matter what it is? Like, what do they need to know? What is important for them to know? Keeping the student at the center, thinking about what their progression is when they get out of school.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions regarding professional development? Okay, we'll move on to 2024-25 district calendar.
So, biggest thing here is we're just about at the point here where we feel we have a calendar. This does not take board approval, but I did want to just bring it forth to the committee. I will be doing this with each committee this week. But probably the biggest change for this year is we are looking at some of the work that we're doing, a part of our work with diversity and looking at opportunities to celebrate, especially all of the different all of our different differences in our students and our community population. We are looking at doing some work on Indigenous Peoples Day. One of the things we're looking at is we have various half days that have been built into our calendar. And so we looked at, was there some ways maybe to shift some of that to be able to take some time to be able to really focus on Indigenous Peoples Day, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, as well as a little bit of a shift, the way that it falls, it fits really well for Good Friday. So what we're looking at is switching to half days for those 3 days. And the way that, as we've worked with the TCEA, as you know, we negotiate a calendar with our teachers group. We feel that there's some really neat opportunity to do some things here for Indigenous Peoples Day. We're hopeful to be able to work with the Grand Drivers Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. We have many of students, Indigenous students in our district. We have Indigenous programs throughout all of our buildings. How can we really look at it as an opportunity to use that day to learn a little bit more about the culture of very important piece of our community, as well as we've talked about, there was some talk with the board about Dr. Martin Luther King Day at one point, of going to back to a day of school and have that be a day of learning and of honoring the work of Dr. King. And so this is a way we think that for us to start that. What can we look at in that morning to be able to do some of that work? And then maybe there are things at the college or the film festival or others that may do in the afternoon for students to have an opportunity to learn and be a part of that. And then again, as the way that the calendar fit, we really needed, because of our requirements of 180 days and 1,098 hours, we had the opportunity to take a look at Good Friday, which we've normally had as a full day off, of trying to do that morning, and then still people are able to do, that do participate maybe in church and those things a little bit, later in that early afternoon for an opportunity with that. It still allows us in our calendar to try and push not deep into June. As the last couple of years we've had, of course, some of the hottest days of the summer have hit us right there in the end. So it gets us to that point to still get out earlier in June. And so I think that, there was real good support from the TCEA, but they do take it for a vote of their membership from that standpoint, but just wanted to bring it in front of each committee just to see if there's any issues from that standpoint that have come, you believe might be there.
Flinoy had to step out, so she had just a couple questions. So her first question, end of the second quarter on a Monday, half day, question mark. So what would that be, January 20th, right?
For the semester you're talking?
Yeah, end of second quarter, yeah.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter where we break that off of. It's just that's kind of the way it landed, to be able to have, because there was an issue, think of coming back and there was something, I'm trying to remember?
Part of it was the Friday. Originally, we were coming back Friday, January 3rd from break. And so we moved that so that we weren't sure we were going to get 75% of our students here, so to count as a day. So they kept that as a vacation day and then moved to a half day on the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we worked with the high school administrators on when that last day of first semester would be. So that would be Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right? Is that the 20? Yeah, the 20.
Okay, on the 20th.
Yep.
And then, okay, and you're still waiting on the TCEA to confirm that, or
So,
no, is this set?
so once I give them the go-ahead,
Okay.
that we're comfortable.
Got it.
Then I think they'll be ready to take it for a vote of their membership.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we were with the board, had the opportunity to hear all that, see all of it here. I'm gonna do this at each committee this week.
Okay.
And as long as I get through the committee week here, we're comfortable, I'm gonna, make sure that we confer to the TCA that we're ready to move forward.
Okay, couple other questions. She just has community projects question mark on that half day for
A lot of work to
MLK.
do.
Yeah.
But, we've talked all along, if we're gonna do it, let's do it early so that
Yeah.
we have plenty of time.
Right.
To get some folks together, get that work done, and have that work both for Indigenous Peoples' Day and for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay, got it. And then half day on Good Friday, attendance will be low.
Again, that's something, but not necessarily. That's something we'll take a look at. This is new.
Yeah.
But, it's, something that we felt versus a whole day, that we only have so many days with a calendar.
Yeah.
And, and this was incorporating half days we've done. We just shifted those days because we do some professional development in those afternoons.
Okay.
And then you would start on the 30th? Or you'd start on the 3rd of September?
You would have,
Students on the
you would-
third.
yeah, those are teacher work days that you see there in blue.
Oh, right.
And
Students
then-
would
and
start
then
on the
students,
3rd.
by law, we have to start the day after Labor Day.
And Labor Day is falling on the 2nd?
Correct. And so 3rd would be our first day, September 3rd, with students.
And then the 6th is a half-day, workday kind of thing?
Correct.
Correct.
And that's sort of to pick up, now that you've had a little bit of experience with where
Labor Day.
Correct.
the organizational holes are.
Correct.
I
I've
think
never-
we should have a community snow day sometime. But you don't know.
You and all the
That's-
teachers.
Hold on a
Yeah.
second. Did the kids
When
pay you
is
by
that?
chance? Did they slip you a 20 here to say, make that comment? Just wondering.
And then didn't the kids have a big, wasn't there a big thing where they were pushing for something around
Halloween.
Halloween?
And I do believe that
Yeah.
right in
Got
this
it.
one.
They won
Yes.
in this
Yep.
I
one.
believe
November
in this
1st.
one that
They got
it
it.
was
Little day.
determined to be able to do that.
They do get it. Yep,
Yep.
So they get,
they do get it.
Right there.
so you're telling the, what was it, 1,000, 2,000 kids, it was a,
Their petition?
Their
I don't-
petition worked.
All they know is the TCA was in
This year.
favor of that, so,
This year.
So,
But I-
and
I
it
let
felt
the
this year
kids
it worked.
know. If
Yeah.
you have a student assembly.
They have a voice.
Yeah.
I would tell them that.
But I don't know if it's
really,
gonna work in the calendar next year for that. but-
Yeah, be
Work
careful
on
what
it,
you.
work on it, because
Yeah.
apparently that one's important.
I feel like children are cheering all over the place, except that nobody's watching this, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I'd like to have the kids recognize
Yeah.
that, yeah, something that you really care about.
Then they'll hold us accountable the next year when it
Exactly.
doesn't
Right.
fall in a
Right.
good calendar, and they'll say, "You
Well, then we'll
said
get
you
them
did."
involved in a dental program
There you
immediately afterwards.
There you go. There you go. That's right.
You know, not just Munson, but we'll get the dental community involved too.
There you go. Okay, celebrations,
Yeah.
successes.
Yep.
All right, it starts today with our ribbon cutting and open house of the Student Health Center. So if you're available from 3:30 to 5, that is today on Silver Lake Road on the campus of West Middle School. Excited to have that opportunity and that resource for our students and families. Next one is our curriculum specialists and content leaders. So our curriculum instruction team has been meeting with them on a regular basis to focus on, this month was around collaborative teaming. We've talked about developing systems of prevention and intervention for students. And so this has been a group where many of them have been in place, but to get them all together in one room and really hear what the needs, concerns are, and develop a place for collective new learning together has been really exciting. We've gotten some good feedback. We've gotten some things that they want to do to make it even better. And it's been really great because our team also works with the principals. So much of the work that we're doing with principals, this is kind of working along parallel, but we're getting with people that are closest to the work. These are people leading a lot of their peers with really the work that we do every day. So really exciting work. Again, this focus was on their professional learning and really looking at data. So the team also did that, and then making some recommendations for like what are their needs this upcoming year. Anything to add for that? Okay.
They did spend a lot of time, probably their first time through comprehensive needs analysis and analyzing what each curricular area needs from the curriculum specialist and content leader perspective.
Nice. The next one is our Women in Leadership series. This was kind of a professional nudge last year when I went to the Michigan Association of School Administrators Women in Leadership Conference, and they said, look, if you're sitting in a central office role, make sure that you're clearing the path for your newer women leaders to be able to go to this conference and to be able to get together and have some collaborative conversations and new learning. So there are 20 of us, I think, 20 of us. And we've been meeting since October. The idea was that we would put some topics out there that were kind of ongoing topics for, I guess, women in leadership in general. And these were the ones that came up. And then each of the women had an opportunity to sign up for a different month to lead. So the first one was in October, I led the confidence and leadership. And then the other ones, other people have led so Jessie Houghton led imposter syndrome. We had Connie Taylor managing difficult conversations. And this past month, Kristen Studeman led giving and receiving feedback. It's been really amazing to just get all of us together in one room because some of them hadn't even met one another or really knew each other. And I think the other part is just the learning that we're doing together and giving people opportunities to stand up and lead. So more to come. We will be having we will kind of be hosting the group that's coming up here in April too, with the Women in Leadership for the statewide conference.
Do they do anything like that for men?
Do they do anything like that? Well, we meet monthly with. We meet monthly.
No, men. I mean, just men.
Do they have a men's conference?
No.
Yeah, it's the
Every
conference
day.
is
Regular
pretty much the
conference.
regular
Every day.
conference. I mean,
You're-
I was
you're-
thinking. No, I was thinking about the MASA conference like 10 or 15 years ago. I went. I was like one of like 25 or 30 women in the room of like 500 men, and so that's grown. The Women in Leadership Conference actually is having breakout sessions this year. They just had one room of 250 women last year. It's grown to that. And this coming year in April, hosted here in Traverse City, they're going to have breakout sessions. So.
And
You
they
know,
don't exclude if
No.
a male would want to attend, they are more
They
than
could.
welcome to.
They probably
Yeah, and I mean,
Bender keeps inviting me, but I don't.
I mean, you have
'Cause it's here
4
in Traverse
daughters.
City.
I mean,
you
come
know,
on.
I look at you
Yeah,
look at college
exactly.
enrollment, and the women line is going this way, and the men line is going this way.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Go look at the trends.
Well, the
And there's
superintendent world, I will
concern.
tell you, it's still predominantly male.
I believe it. But it seems to me that you can only take this to a certain extent before you begin to actually. It's not as positive as.
Well, we're not there yet.
well, I'm
Yes,
going
I
to
feel like you need an
embrace.
intervention.
I'm going to embrace
No, you
our women in
don't. I
leadership
can
because
stand in
TCAPS, we are
a room of
supporting
men
women in
or-
leadership, and I appreciate it. And so, yeah, for sure. So,
It's been a good networking opportunity, especially for our newer, especially assistant principals that are in those ranks.
Yeah.
Just have not had that kind of experience and network support. So some of us can say, been there, done that, and give them some advice on what not to do. Our learning that we've done that, maybe failures or mistakes. So that's been awesome. So our Indigenous Education Program is hosting a monthly educational series on the Anishinaabe Expressive Culture Series, and this is open and free to the community, and it's funded by the Native American Heritage Fund. So we would really welcome you to come. More information is on our website at tcaps.net/Indigenous Education. Another celebration is our TCAPS choral departments, both Central and West. This Thursday, can you believe it's February 1st at 7 p.m., The Journey of Harriet Tubman. So they will be doing a choral ensemble. There'll also be an instrumental ensemble and a visual arts display. So hopefully you can make that.
and that's at
the First
First Congregational Church. Yeah.
It will be amazing.
Yeah.
It's one not to miss, for sure.
Continuing on the celebration train, we also have the world-renowned St. Olaf College Band performing at West Senior High. That's February 3rd at 7, and tickets are available online or at the door. So again, excited to see all of our kids in action. And since we've approved it, the official next curriculum meeting is Tuesday, February 27th at 8:30.
I would just like to put a plug in that the Special Olympics begins in our community starting tomorrow at the Grand Traverse Resort. So if you're interested in going out there, it begins tomorrow at 8, and it will be kids from all over the state doing winter activities, Howe Arena, the resort, as well as Shanty.
That's great.
Wow.
Is it Winter Olympics? Or
It is,
like
it is winter. I'm a little worried
okay.
about some of the activities.
I
that
know.
well, you know, they're
And
gonna
Shanny will pull a lot of it off. You got indoor ice and Shanny, you'll pull it off.
still a lot of things they can do. So great opportunity to see some of our kids out in our community doing great things.
Well, good. All right. Well, with that, thanks everybody for a great meeting. Lots of good stuff. Again, I know Kristen already said next meeting is Monday, February 27th.
Nope. Tuesday.
I'm sorry. Tuesday. I got the date right, the day wrong. So Tuesday, February 27th, 8:30 in this room. So with that, we'll adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.